the contraption is a pillory. And for anyone who is unfamiliar as far as with old words from like medieval ages, those are the stockades that you would see like criminals in, where it's the 3 holes, 1 for your head and then 2 for your hands to go in right next to your head. And
Oh, that's how you use
also,
it. I thought it was just for all 3 of my legs.
oh God. This was our episode for self-control, wasn't it?
Oh, I Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 150. I'm your host, Ryan, here with the other host, Edge.
You know, it's not one of the hundreds, like the even hundreds, but that still sounds good, doesn't it? Episode 150.
Yeah, I just wish it wasn't this episode. Because like our last episode was so grandiose, right? That this just is lackluster for the 150th, right? Even though technically it's not 150 because some of our episodes aren't numbered, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, way to really build up the excitement for our audience here. It's episode 150, and then just immediately out the gate, wish it wasn't this one. I guess we'll record.
I apologize for being so selfish, but I must continue because housekeeping's up top. You can listen to us everywhere. Visit us at podcastcore.com for all of our info. Email us at podcastcore@gmail.com. Remember, that's COR. And then follow us on all the platforms. It helps. And then leave a like and comment wherever you listen. But tell a friend to learn self-control by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
Is this really the place to learn self-control? I listened to our Elise episode. I don't think I'm...
That's your fault.
I don't think I'm the bastion. Like, I'm not a paragon of self-control here.
No, it's because they can see both sides of the coin in one episode. So it helps them to be able to see, oh, I don't want to be like that anymore. I want to change.
God, what's wrong with this Hetch guy? Let me change my ways.
So today we're talking about one of the newer characters with an old feeling bio is Briar. And the bio's written by Max Folkman, sorry. And this bio, we're going to just warn you up top. It's a short one, which is good. So it'll be a quick listen, especially if you've listened to our recent episode, which was a fun slog. But
if you listen to it, we love you for it because we had a blast recording it.
Yes, we enjoyed recording it. But it's one of our longer episodes. I was looking through our catalog. But this one feels almost like an old bio from the original launch. Like if you've been playing League of Legends or you have played it a long time in the past, a lot of the original champions just had, bare minimum, establish a little bit of a world because what they cared about was the game.
Yeah, and there are still a couple champions that, as far as like some of the older ones that you can go and read through right now that still have a very much that same feel to it. And like some of them are even like some more popular ones in other stories, like Gangplank and Heimerdinger both have like kind of really lackluster bios, and this bio is going to kind of follow up in that same feel. And then there's a couple other ones like Cough Cough Shaco Cough Cough, where it's just Riot just refuses to give him any story.
That's because he's too good of a character that they can't. Like it's
you
impossible.
Were so gross.
The literary expertise needed to pull that off would cost them millions. It's like, why risk it? All right, part 1. Story best told in part 3. 3 parts. Before Borum Darkwill fell. So we'll stop there real quick. There's a lot of content we have on Noxus. Swain. You can listen to some of our Ionia stuff that crosses over with that war. But go listen to some of our Noxus stuff first. LeBlanc as well. That'll give you some breadth to this whole thing because this story's not going to give you any in-depth on any of that.
Right, and especially like under the reign of Borum Darkwill building up into Swain's coup, there's a lot going on in Noxus at this time, and this is where this story for Briar is picking up. And so like go listen to those episodes for that bit of the story because like we said, Briar's bio is not going to give you any details. We're just looking at who and what is Briar.
Yeah.
So
So during this time, before he fell, he's still in power. He gave the Black Rose the task, and the Hemomancers, which are descendants of. Uh, oh no,
Vladimir.
Vladimir.
Vladimir. I
Yeah,
got you.
I thought of every other vampire. my brain got there.
Dracula.
Dracula. But they wanted to create a living weapon. And previously to this point, they were doing necromancy. They were taking the dead and then infusing them with, their magics to try to get them to be living weapons. That was not working. So this time they're going to make one from scratch, the homunculus style, but being from pure blood. And this being would not need to eat or drink or anything like that. It would just need to be fueled by blood. So it's a killing machine that would live and function off the blood of the things it kills, right? That's almost the perfect blueprint.
Yeah, and this is like a fun thing here as far as like with the Noxus episodes that we've covered because we have covered both Vladimir, who like is the father of all hemomancy,
Yeah.
but we also recently covered Mordekaiser,
Yep.
which is part of the reason why like we're having this transition now because Noxus, as we know it today, was built off of the empire built by Mordekaiser, which is all necromancy.
Yep.
So like they're going with the new technology. Like they're over here like, hey, we've been playing around with our Commodore 64s, but what if we tried to upgrade and make the personal home computer better?
Yeah. Exactly. It's a huge step. And it was a huge failure. Oh, absolute failure. Like some early Apple products, she only wanted to eat. And often what would happen is given a chosen target to attack, she would just end up killing everything else but that target. So they decided to, okay, let's do a 2.0 version. And they decided to create a special shackling device that functioned on blood, but it had a gemstone that allowed them to control essentially her when she was in frenzy and when she wasn't. And they hoped this would be able to, save their investment. And this also was a failure. And this takes us to part 2.
Yeah. So as far as like the contraption that they made that they have this hematosis gem in,
Yeah.
basically just a blood gem, a magic blood gem. The contraption is a pillory, and for anyone who is unfamiliar as far as with old words from like medieval ages, those are the stockades that you would see like criminals in, where it's the 3 holes, 1 for your head, and then 2 for your hands to go in right next to your head. And
Oh, that's how you use
also,
it. I thought it was just for all 3 of my legs.
oh God, this was our episode for self-control, wasn't it?
Oh, I forgot. Oh, glory, Lord Talos, shine your rays upon me and cleanse my filth.
But yeah, so if you hear us use the word pillory like that, it's that contraption that we're speaking of, and that's the thing that you see like in Briar's model as far as where the gym is connected to. It's that stockade, but the original word is pillory. So there you go.
Yeah. So in part 2, we have the coup happening. So we're jumping a bit. And obviously this coup is by Swain. And Briar was used on the other side as an attempt to assassinate him. So they sent her out with this new controlling device, but they added one other thing because of the previous failure. Additional handlers. They're like, hey, just send people with her. We have the device. That should work out. And the moment they released the shackles, she killed everyone around her. If you've seen her intro video, you get an example of this. Killed everyone around her except Swain. And it gave Swain plenty of time to just fuck off. He was like, okay, I'm out of here. So obviously, if you've listened to our previous Noxus episode,
Just a little bit. And one of my favorite parts about like this scene here is because like first it like really helps to like build up like just how strong Briar is, because all these handlers are not just like they got Tom, Dick, and Harry off the streets and said keep an eye on her.
Yeah.
Like these are all people from the Black Rose.
Yeah.
All right. So these are like some of the most powerful sorcerers or warriors in the Noxian underground that are charged with watching Briar,
Yeah.
and they can't. Like she just kills them all. And it's and it also gives that vibe of like, a weapon that you cannot control. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so Noxus in their playing around with hemomancy have just kind of casually created void diet, like diet void.
Yeah.
Like it's not as bad as the void because it's just a like one little entity instead of being like an entire cosmos of a big threat.
Yeah.
But you can't control it, and she's gonna kill everybody because she's hungry.
Yeah. So once he finishes this coup, obviously he gains power. Swain's first orders of business are to lock this fucking weapon up and throw away the key. And this is alongside some other living weapons that were used during the coup. And while being restrained for the first time, Briar was left with her own thoughts for a long period of time. We're talking years. And years after, she began to more understand herself and understand her perception of the other living weapons. She started to pity them because they would only cry for blood. They weren't restrained. They had no other desires. And she was starting to notice that she did.
And I do like this because it kind of helps put into perspective the fact that like the Briar is a newer creation,
Mhm.
because this is kind of like, watching growing pains happen, right? And the and as far as like with Briar being trapped with her thoughts, like there's a couple moments that's described where she can't tell if it's her own thoughts or if there are actually other living weapons
Yeah.
around her. And then when she's like able to like, or either, at the very least convince herself that it's the other living weapons
Yeah.
around her that she's hearing, she's like, you guys are boring, which is a very almost like childlike response to
Yeah.
her situation of just like, y'all are boring and I don't want to be boring. But it works out in her benefit because this helps her to learn how to kind of curb her own appetite.
Exactly. So she began to desire the concept of a life outside of destruction and blood. And if she was given another chance outside, she decided she would want more of a balance, right? Because obviously, because of what she was made, she can't eat, she can't drink. So she's stuck in this conundrum of she has to consume blood. But what if she could do that on her own terms and still maintain control? So she began first by learning to manipulate her shackles, how they worked, and how to control them. And then she came up with the plan, and this takes us to part 3.
And uh, you know, any kind of living weapon that is able to start controlling the sheath, that's a problem. Like,
We
this is
listen,
not a good
I
thing.
feel like as much content as we've done, we've touched living weapons a lot. You've heard our disclaimers, you know our philosophies.
Go listen to our Aatrox episode, our Varus episode. It totally works out great for everyone who's
Kane.
touched these living weapons. Kane.
Please do not touch the living weapons. So after this long, her guard started to become too routine in dealing with her. It's been years, right? And then one day, she was able to convince one of the guards to get too close. She unlocked her shackles just a bit and then just devoured him, right? Consuming blood for the first time in a very long time. And this gave her that jolt, almost like a hint of heroin after a long time. But she prepared for this moment, used that energy to escape prison, and the moment she got outside, she kind of recomposed herself. This is where the plan could have gone wrong, but she's prepared for this moment. And I'm kind of proud of her. I mean, despite her murdering, because I mean, she's a living weapon. There's a lot of discussion there.
Like,
But I'm proud that she actually accomplished her goals.
there's a like it is a kind of a weird thing because I can understand the feeling of pride there,
Yeah.
especially when you put it in the comparison of like, the guard that she eats is like her first hit of heroin after a long time, which is like to be able to have self-control after that, like after
Yeah.
like you jump off of the wagon and then you're able to just be like, no, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like this is if you are struggling with anything out there, Briar is not the role model for you. Okay, like just let's just stay on the wagon. All right, but
We have
yeah,
plenty of episodes with that kind of messaging.
yeah, yeah, we do. Go listen to those. But at least for like Briar, I mean, like we started off this story as a legitimate, like mindless machine of blood,
Yeah.
right? Like this, just see, it was always on site, regardless of who it was, completely out of control. And now she's able to just kill a guard and get out of her prison and go out into the world. Like
Mhm.
that's a huge step for her because we're not talking about like leaving a bloody trail of like 1,000 corpses on her way out. Like she just
Yeah.
got out. So yeah, that's a lot of growth as far as being trapped in a prison cell.
Yeah, and this takes us to the end here where Briar is now just roaming freely through Noxus and living because Noxus is huge, Noxus is hectic. So she's able to live in that environment without too much trouble because we all know, and it is a fact, that the Black Rose is still keeping an eye on her, even under, Swain and the Triferics ruling. They still have influence and they're interested in her own personal growth because remember, they failed constantly to get her to this point, and she did this herself after years of just self-reflection. So now she just kind of strives to learn what it is to or what it means to live, right? And the only time she unlocks her shackles is when she decides to. She's now living on her own terms. And this kind of takes us to our title card, which you didn't say up top, which is consent to consumption. Is because there's not much messaging in this, but the messaging that's clear here, especially in the story where they capitalize certain things, italicize certain things, is that she's now in control of her own person. She's able to do things on her own terms. And although she was created against her own will for a goal that she didn't agree to, she now can dictate how she lives and not adhere to those original directives. And I think that's pretty solid for such a short, simple bio.
Yeah, and as far as like the reason that we are, kind of harping on like the shortness and simplicity of it is because of the fact that it is a newer champion.
Yeah.
And we've got to see as far as like especially some of the older champions that have recently had stories revamped, like or even if you go back a little bit further than recently, characters like Lee Sin,
Mhm.
Udyr, like even Varus, like we have had like a lot of world building done with a lot of character bios, and especially for a region like Noxus, which has such in-depth political intrigue
Yeah.
compared to like the other regions, it's kind of weird to see such a lackluster story. Because I mean, like, let's look at one of the more recent like Noxian characters that came out before Briar's, like Samira,
Yeah.
which we have an episode on Samira. Samira's bio like puts this one to shame. Like
Yeah.
we get a backstory as far as like her childhood, where her parents fit both in her childhood as well as her present day life, the people that she met to become the mercenary that she is now, and then why she became a mercenary and how she became the mercenary she is now, because she didn't start off like a complete lunatic.
Yeah.
Like she got there, but she didn't start off that way. We got like a lot of details with this, whereas with Briar's bio, it really is just kind of like a bunch of blood mages got together and created Briar, but they couldn't control her. And now Briar is in control of herself, so everyone's just watching. Done.
Yeah. That's it.
We could have made this whole episode that one sentence. So it feels a little lackluster, especially for how much work has been done with so many other characters that have come into this game. So it's kind of weird. But that said, it's for the simplicity of it, it does get the point across really well, which is that Briar is in control of herself, and she's the only one controlling herself, and that's kind of it. But it's, it does open up the door for a lot of really cool things to happen, because this could totally turn into like it could totally turn into almost like a Godzilla-esque storyline of like, you know,
Yep.
maybe like Swain is working with Darius and Draven on a campaign like into Demacia, and they come up with this plan, and it's like, okay, well, let's go ahead and get Talon on board because, you know, we got to get rid of Garen. If we can get rid of Garen, we'll win the front line.
Yeah.
And then there's this, you know, little strike force going into Demacia. Everything's going, oh, that's Briar. Oh crap. Like you could have like storylines like that, like,
Yeah,
so it does
Suicide
open the
Squad
door.
esque type stories. Yeah.
Yeah, like it opens the door for stuff like that. But as far as just this bio, that's all we got. You know, we can just daydream.
Yeah. So we made a promise and we kept it this time. It's a short episode. So thanks for sticking around for the little lunch break here. And thanks for listening. And we'll be back soon with the next episode.
Yeah, take care, everybody.